We got a lot to get to on this edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast. The Amerks win again. We'll begin our exit interview series looking at Rasmus Dahlin's season. And I promise that's it. I won't get into any of the Bills nonsense from this morning. All coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
Your Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everybody, and welcome into this Monday edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast, and thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can watch us on our YouTube channel, like and subscribe to the show if you like watching it there. And of course, if you would like to become a member of our Locked On Sabres text club, maybe you're just looking to keep up with what's going on in Rochester with the Amerks and their playoffs, then head over to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSabres. You can sign up for us there. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turns any TV into your Xbox, no console needed. Head to amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. Sneaky Joe DiBiase here as we are in full swing into off-season mode, and we'll have a full slate of shows for you this week, 5 days throughout the week. I just want to shout out, thanks everybody for the kind words. I had a really tough week personally last week. Those in our text club and those that reached out, want to thank you all for that. And, I only made a couple of shows last week, but we're going to be in full force starting today. And we'll go through player by player, what happened this past season, what we can expect going forward, and we will be fully locked in on the Rochester Americans playoff run. I got a lot to say on that coming up on the third segment of today's show. And if you listen to my radio show, you know that I had an eventful morning with the Bills general manager. So nice little distraction here in the middle of the day for me. And I'm very excited to talk about some of the Sabres offseason stuff coming up on today's show. And if you're wondering, no, you didn't miss it. There's been no Kevyn Adams news. At time of recording, at least. It could happen 5 minutes after we're done here. But there has been no news about Kevyn Adams, whether he's going to stay, whether he's going to go, whether he's going to stay in a different role. I mean, Terry Pegula was in town this past weekend for the NFL draft, so one can guess that somewhere in his visit to Buffalo, his stay here, I don't know if he's still here, that he has met with Adams or will meet with Adams. So we're still waiting to hear word on that. And the other newsy things that have happened in the NHL before we get into Rasmus Dahlin, Mike Sullivan fired, mutual parting ways, however you want to term it, by the Pittsburgh Penguins. And I don't expect to talk much about him. I had a lot of listeners reach out, though, asking about Mike Sullivan and could the Sabres move on from Lindy Ruff to hire Sullivan. And I think there is no chance of that unless they want to do some structure where Adams is the president of hockey operations, Lindy Ruff is the general manager, or he's the president of hockey operations and there's a different general manager. So Lindy gets kicked upstairs in some capacity and then Sullivan becomes the head coach. But I think that is a very, very far-fetched idea. I don't expect there to be a coaching change in almost any circumstance. The GM is the thing that we're waiting to watch. If you're a Lou Lamoriello fan, I've had some of those reaching out about Lou Lamoriello. We'll talk about him a little bit later this week. But let's begin our exit interview series, and let's start with the best Buffalo Sabre, in my opinion, on the roster. He is the captain. He is Rasmus Dahlin. To me, he embodies everything that you want the rest of the Buffalo Sabres roster to have. Dahlin is super talented. He is a crazy hard worker. He's become, I think, a better and better leader. And this is an important one for Buffalo, especially because we've had some moments. He is the guy you trust to stand up for his teammates at every turn. And that is a part of this story for Dahlin. Let's start with the season that he just had. Then we'll answer the question of what's to come. And most importantly for me, two questions about Dahlin that we'll get to. Is there another step forward, another level for him to go? And is he partner proof? Is he partner proof in that can he play with anybody? I got some numbers on that coming up, how he played with his partners and then how he played away from those partners. But let's start with the numbers. This past season for Rasmus Dahlin, one of his better statistical seasons, his second best statistical season, 17 goals, 51 assists for 68 points, which was, of course, one of the better defensemen in hockey. He now, going back 4 years, has more goals than any defenseman in the National Hockey League that isn't named Cale Makar. Cale Makar, who had 30 this year, obviously is number one in that category. Dahlin is number two. He really has developed into a good goal scorer for his position. When he began his career as somebody that could barely shoot the puck, he had the stick handling, he had the passing, he had the skating, but he didn't have the shot. He now has that. He's not firing Shea Weber 105 mile per hour slap shots, but if it's him against the goalie one-on-one in a high danger chance, he's scoring those goals a good amount of the time. And that's how, in part, he gets to 17 on the season. 5 of those were power play, 12 at even strength. And then in terms of the assists, yes, he is somebody that feeds a lot of his numbers on the power play, 34 even strength assists compared to 16 power play assists, but that's pretty standard, I would say, amongst the top defensemen in the NHL. So those are great numbers. And 68 points in 73 games, like we're talking a near point per game defenseman. He is not yet at the Norris Trophy level of offense at the least. And this is a thing about that trophy, and it kind of always has been, right? That it is giving more weight to the offensive production than it probably should. Maybe the peak example of that is when Brent Burns won the Norris Trophy in 2017. And maybe it was a little overstated how bad defensively he was, because I don't think he was bad defensively in my personal opinion. But he won the Norris that trophy because he had the most points, and he had 29 goals. That was really it. It was the goal scoring. 29 goals for Brent Burns with the San Jose Sharks. And you've had other guys like that win that award in the past, whereas the guys that are elite defensively, you know, they don't always get as much of the credit. Dahlin is an elite player in both categories. What he has developed into is somebody that controls the puck. He controls game flow as much as he controls the puck. There is no Sabre. This is where I think he separates himself from Tage as the best player on the team. Tage is definitely a close second. I mean, he's elite too. Great goal scorer. But Tage doesn't have that ability that Dahlin does to he decides what the pace of the game is going to be when he's out there. If Dahlin wants to slow the game down, he's going to do it. If he wants to speed it up, he's going to do it. He's like a planet out there, and the gravity of everybody on the ice kind of revolves around him. They're a great possession team when he is on the ice, and there are so many other stats that you could look at with Rasmus Dahlin that really point to how good of a player that we are talking about. And you know, there's a lot of things to get to about his season. One thing to lead off with here is health. Now, he does not have an injury problem for his career. Like, he relatively has stayed healthy. This past year was a little bit to do with him about injury. Going back to the first 90 seconds of training camp, the first practice that the Buffalo Sabres had this year, Dahlin got hurt and missed practice time and rushed back to get ready by the start of the season. And the Buffalo Sabres didn't have their elite defenseman playing at an elite level for a while at the beginning of the year. He was trying to power through it, and I think he played pretty well. He was still their best defenseman, but he wasn't playing at peak Rasmus Dahlin form because of that injury. And then he gets a worse injury that causes him to miss games. He gets injured in the third period against Colorado back in the fall. Sabres were up 4-1 at that point in time. They blow the lead in that game specifically, and then they go on a long losing streak, the 13-game losing streak, 10 of which were when Rasmus Dahlin was not in the lineup. The Sabres were incapable of overcoming the loss of Rasmus Dahlin. Now, that is more of a team problem, in my opinion. The bigger issue is you have a roster and a group of defensemen that at the moment were incapable of overcoming an injury to their top player. To be fair, though, that happens to a lot of teams. If you lose your best player, look what the Devils have looked like since Jack Hughes has exited the lineup. So it's not necessarily unique to the Buffalo Sabres. Oh, you became way worse when your best player was out. There's the difference, though, between becoming way worse and becoming a 13-game losing streak. You can't win a single game when he's out of the lineup. And that definitely needs to be better going forward. And that's something maybe we'll look at with Owen Power and Bo Byram when we talk more about some more of these defensemen. So that's a big part of his season, the injury that he missed and the amount of games the Sabres lost while he was out of the lineup. Because really, you look at the end of the day, what the Sabres numbers were when he was on and off the ice. At 5-on-5, the Buffalo Sabres, when Dahlin was on the ice this year, scored 70 goals. They gave up 50. So I'm not counting power play for that. I'm not counting penalty kill for that. Just at 5-on-5, when Dahlin's on the ice, the Sabres beat their opponent 70-50 this year. That's a wide disparity. In fact, looking at Dahlin's career, that's the highest goals for percentage of his career. For comparison, last season, when Dahlin was on the ice, it was even, 64-64. The year before, 82-72. That's good. 70-50 is the best of his career. Now, that's a very elementary way of looking at it, but it's not, I mean, there are less elementary ways of looking at it. It's just, what was the score when he was out there? It was 70-50 in favor of the Buffalo Sabres. And that, again, in lies the problem. The team, when he's off the ice, I kind of think of the NBA for this. Nikola Jokic, superstar of the Denver Nuggets. That's the team that I follow. And when he's out, it's like you look at the numbers with and without. When he's on the court, they're like the best team in the league. And the moment he steps off the court, they become like the worst team in the league. And, to a less extreme extent, I think that is true of Dahlin. Now, one other thing to look at for this season before we look at what's to come for Dahlin. Is there another level? And is he partner-proof? That's a conversation I'm really excited to have. He is a captain. Dahlin as a captain. What did we learn about him in year one? When he was asked about it at his end of season press conference, we didn't really get a lot of details from Dahlin. But what we did get was an interesting tidbit from Tage Thompson, who talked about Dahlin being willing to call him out and how much he appreciates that. And he'll call Dahlin out in turn, kind of giving it to each other when somebody's not maybe playing at their fullest form or, pulling their weight as much, putting some words in Tage's mouth at the end there, but that he'll call him out if he needs to. And that is one little tidbit I think is a good sign, right? The captain of the team being willing to kind of go after the other top player on your team. Because if Dahlin is willing to kind of, hold Tage accountable when Tage doesn't really need to be held accountable all that often, then that should mean you would guess that he's willing to hold everybody else accountable too. It'll just become how successful can he be at being infectious in that way? Like Nathan McKinnon, all the stories that are told about him. I always reference McKinnon for this because I think he's kind of, Crosby is number one for this, but the team's not that good anymore. McKinnon is the captain that, man, just everyone in that team is going to emulate his work ethic and his dietary stuff and just everything. McKinnon is a crazy leader and his teammates follow him. And that's what's important for Dahlin. It's not just you doing what you have to do in the workout room, on the ice, standing up for teammates, all that stuff, calling people out in the locker room if you need to, all that it takes to be a great leader. It's good that you do it all yourself, but the elite leaders, I think, are the ones that can get everybody else to do the same thing, to rally around them and emulate them. And we'll see how that goes. It was only year one for Dahlin as captain, and we'll see how elite shape these guys are in when they come back. Because Dahlin's in elite shape. He plays a ton of minutes. He skates a ton. He plays all situations. He plays a physical brand of hockey, right? He throws his body around. He gives some of the biggest bone-crushing checks on the Buffalo Sabres. He'll take you out in front of the net. He'll get in there. He fought two Ottawa's, was it Ottawa Senators or San Jose Sharks? The night before Cousins got traded. Their Cousins is standing behind the net doing nothing while Dahlin is fighting off two Sharks at the same time. That's Dahlin. Dahlin will stand up for you. He will do it all as a leader. That, to me, he's a physical beast, and he doesn't need any questioning in that department. For me, the questions about what's next, is he going to be a guy that ever wins a Norris Trophy? Let's get to that more when we come back here in the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Sabres is presented by Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account? Just looked at it and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, and online shopping and whatever you do for entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, which gives you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps all at the same time, use Monarch Money to check your finances, track spending, even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, stay on the same page without all the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We're into the Sabres offseason. Amerks continue their playoff run. We'll talk about that in a moment. But we're talking Dahlin today, and we're looking back on his season, and now we are looking ahead. Dahlin has received a couple of Norris votes in the past, not for first place, but he finished 8th in the voting 2 years ago. And last year, he finished 15th in the voting. Which I think that only meant one. I want to double check that. It's just one 5th place vote. Yeah, last year Dahlin received. Actually, what's funny is I'm looking at the breakdown, and I don't see him getting a. Oh yeah, 3. There it is. Sorry, 3 5th place votes last year for Rasmus Dahlin. He was one of 15 defensemen that received some sort of vote along the way, but he is yet to be really all that close to winning a Norris Trophy. And that's what he was sold as when he came in. Like, this dude's going to win multiple Norris trophies and be one of the best defensemen in the world. I still think that's going to happen. Not one of the best defensemen in the world. He already is that. There is, to me, no dispute that Dahlin is one of the best defensemen in the world. I believe he is criminally underrated. And I think that was seen when he wasn't playing a ton at the Four Nations tournament, and nobody really batted an eye at it. And to me, it was insane how he wasn't playing more, in that Mattias Ekholm and others were playing more for Team Sweden. Good defenseman, but I don't think you realize how special Rasmus Dahlin is if Mattias Ekholm is playing more minutes than him. And he wasn't playing all that much for Sweden, and nobody thought that was weird. At least not outside of Buffalo. Nobody thought that was weird. So that was a part of it. I just think he's the all-around defenseman. It is the offense combined with the defense, combined with the physicality, the game flow, control point that I made earlier. I just think he's got it all. And that's reflected in some of his advanced numbers. I often point to the goals above replacement that they have over at Evolving Hockey. And if I show you those real quick, Rasmus Dahlin, he's in the 97th percentile for defensemen, goals above replacement, 92nd percentile offensively, and the 87th percentile defensively. He's an elite defenseman, and he gets used like one, and he is so critical to the Buffalo Sabres. I think he's going to win a Norris Trophy. I think he's going to win multiple Norris Trophies. Still, I think it's going to take the Sabres making the playoffs. Simply put, I really think it's it. I think that if you ask me, whenever the Buffalo Sabres drought ends, that will be the year that Dahlin wins the Norris, because somebody's going to get credit for that. Ending the longest drought in hockey history. And, the coach is very likely to get credit. Coach of the year, could be a thing. There's nobody on this team that I think would be in it for MVP unless Dahlin had like 120 points or Tage scored 60. I think the most likely outcome is the year they make the playoffs. A lot of it will have to do with Dahlin was elite, one of the best defensemen in the world, and the fact that they got in, he's going to win the award. That's a little bit of what happened 2 years ago. Remember, when the Sabres were chasing the playoffs in 22-23, Winter, he was one of the favorites, but they fell off a little bit. They came back late. Dahlin got injured. His play fell off just a little bit, and he kind of fell out of the favorite race, and he finished 8th. I think, though, you give him a full season staying healthy, and the team makes the playoffs, he's going to win the Norris, and I think he would win another one after that. Now, the other thing I wanted to get to with Dahlin is the question of, is he partner proof? Because I've mentioned a couple of times, this will be a common sentiment of mine throughout the offseason, that a huge critical thing they need to add this offseason is a partner for Owen Power. And I'm not as worried about who the partner for Rasmus Dahlin will be. Bo Byram, sure, Byram gives his best results when he's out there with Dahlin, but is Dahlin any better or without Byram? And how is that true or not true with other defensemen? So let's try to answer the question of, is Dahlin partner proof? Because in my eyes, he is. In my eyes, no matter who he plays with, he gives great results. I looked at the numbers to see if that's backed up. Are my eyes telling the right story? That put him out there with Jacob Bryson, and your team is going to be the better team when he's on the ice. And for the most part, that's true. Rasmus Dahlin, I looked at expected goals for with and without, and how much better he is with or without that player. So, for example, Dennis Gilbert, who he didn't play a lot with, so it's kind of a really low sample size. But Dennis Gilbert, when Dahlin was on the ice with him, and again, that was only 15 minutes of ice time, so this is very, very small piece of this pie. He was 17% better by expected goals for without Gilbert than with. It was bad when he was with him, but it was only 15 minutes, so who really cares? Some of the guys he played more with. How about Henri Jokiharju? Henri Jokiharju, he was 8% better in expected goals for without Henri Jokiharju than with. How about Matthias Samuelsson? Samuelsson, little closer together, and those two played 332 minutes together, so that's a bigger number. 4.5% better without Samuelsson than with. Continue along this path. How is he with Connor Clifton? 0.9% better without than with. So basically the same. Here's Bo Byram, the guy he played the most minutes with on the blue line, 626 minutes at 5-on-5, and it was exactly the same. 0.01, if I really want to get picky here, was the difference with and without. So Byram with Dahlin, great results. Byram without Dahlin, bad results. Dahlin with Byram, great results. Dahlin without Byram, great results. So for Dahlin, there's almost no impact, at least in that one category, that one number, which I think is the best at kind of determining the overall here. You might be asking yourself, though, hey, it sounds like Dahlin is better without than with every defenseman he played with. How can that be possible? There must be some guy, one player, that he is worse without than with, and that is true. And it's a big difference. It was only it's a little bit of a chunk, 132 minutes of ice time with Owen Power. And this is the one player that he is definitely better with than without. If you look at Dahlin's numbers by expected goals for percentage with Owen Power, they are 69.9%. That's elite, unsustainably elite. You would never get that over a full season. He was 52.6% without. It's a good number. He was elite, though, with Owen Power in those 132 minutes. That is a 17% difference in that 132 minutes. He was awesome with Owen Power, at least by expected goals for percentage. Again, when I saw them out there together, they look great. I guess I didn't really notice a substantial difference, but that's why we have some different numbers to look at. If you want to look at, other numbers like shot attempts for and against when he's with Power versus when he's without Power. The Sabres got 69% of the shot attempts when they were out there together. And when Dahlin played without Power, they got 53% of the shot attempts. So again, that's about the difference in most of these categories. I don't think, though, that's to mean that he should play with Owen Power. I know those numbers sound great, and you should just say, well, I'll just put them together and ride that out. I still feel like, though, the best outcome for the Sabres on the blue line is to have two awesome pairs. And Power, I think you want to have one guy that could give him the Dahlin level numbers or something close to it without having to play him with Dahlin. Because if you put him with Dahlin, then I think your second and third pair really suffer by having that happen. And I think you just want it to be a little bit more balanced. So to the original question, though, is Dahlin partner proof? I think for the most part he is. You are seeing great results almost no matter who he plays with. Again, other than the 15 minutes he played with Dennis Gilbert. That's it. And I'm honestly not worried about it because it's such a small sample. So I'm not saying ignore the position entirely. I'm not saying begin next season with Dahlin playing with Jacob Bernard-Docker on the top pair. I just think the Sabres should invest more money, more assets, more capital in who Owen Power's partner is going to be than who Rasmus Dahlin's partner is going to be. And with that, we close on Dahlin. I think he's going to win multiple Norrises going forward. And I think you could pay a little less attention to his partner. And you don't have to spend $8 million on Bo Byram. I want to talk more about Byram in his own episode, but that's one of the conclusions that I've kind of derived from thinking about their offseason is I don't want to pay Bo Byram $8 million a year when he only plays great with Rasmus Dahlin, where Dahlin plays the same with almost everybody else. All right. When we come back, the Rochester Americans are up 2-0 in their series. A look back at the first couple of games, including game 2 on Sunday, which was a great one. That's coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by Wonderful Pistachios. If you are looking for a snack that is both delicious and nutritious, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, which gives you over 10% of your daily value. They're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats that help you keeps you feeling fuller longer. The fact that Wonderful Pistachios is complete protein, providing all 9 essential amino acids is great. No shells pistachios. That's my favorite. It's the grab and go ease. If you like that crack of the opening of each shell sound, it's like snack meditation, you could go for that too. So whether you're running around or you just need to grab a snack for the golf course or whatever, Wonderful Pistachios are the snack that works as hard as you do. So get snacking, get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, little Locked On Amerks for you here as the Amerks are rolling through round 1 of the Calder Cup playoffs. Been very excited for this playoff run. Watched a little bit of both of these games over the weekend. I look forward to going to one of these games. The next opportunity, if you're wondering, would be a potential Game 5 against Syracuse on Friday night at 7:05. I think you're going to find opportunities to go. Past that, though, by the way, that's Friday, May 9th. Not this Friday, but next Friday is the next possible home game. These series, remember, very spread out because they like to get fans in the building on weekends. They have a Tuesday night game, might be a little harder to get a draw. So these are spread out. Next game, by the way, is Thursday against Syracuse. I don't think you're going to get that Game 5 home game. I think you're going to see the Amerks win this series, and right now I would predict that they're going to sweep this series. They only need one more. It's a best of 5, and so far you had a 3-2 win on Friday night, and you had a 4-0 win on Sunday. I'll speak to Sunday because I did watch a little bit more of that game than I did on Friday. Only saw bits and pieces of Friday. The Amerks are such a fast team. They really are, especially when their skilled guys are out there. And that's their youth, and that's their demeanor, the way they like to play. They're such a fast team. And they do have a lot of skill. And really, and I'll do this throughout the Amerks playoff run. And I hope to have Michael Leone on, by the way, this show. We're still figuring that out, working out details to have the Amerks head coach on the show throughout this playoff run. When I talk about them and when I think about them, of course, it's within a Sabres context. So I'm thinking about the prospects. I'm thinking about Yuri Kulik, who's down there, scored a goal, a power play one-timer from the right wall, just as you would think of a Kulik goal. He scored that goal on Sunday. You had Isak Rozan scored an empty netter, but he's somebody we bring up because he was a first-round pick. And Konsta Hellenis also scored a goal. Nice little rebound goal, putting home. That was the first one that opened the scoring on Game 2. Those are the guys I'm thinking more about because they have long-term potential for the Buffalo Sabres. One thing that this Amerks team really has, though, that stands out to me about, where the strengths of their team, the strengths and the weaknesses of their team. The Rochester Americans have a really skilled blue line. They really do. Cale Clegg has scored a couple of goals in this series. Eric Brandstrom, he didn't play on Saturday. I think he's dealing with, or on Sunday, excuse me. But he is somebody that is very key to this as well. He has been a great AHL defenseman whenever he's been in the AHL. He's always been a tweener between the AHL and the NHL lately. But beyond him, Clegg has been doing this, and Ryan Johnson has been doing this, and Novikov and Zach Metza deserves credit as well. That Amerks blue line has been impressive to me. And a lot of it from guys that you might never expect are going to become Buffalo Sabres again. But whatever, you're trying to win these AHL playoff games, and those veteran guys are getting the job done. And then, of course, Devon Levi. Devon Levi he looks awesome. 35 save shutout, and he just looks very composed to me right now. He, I think, is showing every bit of that potential that we had talked about leading into this playoff run of somebody that could carry the Amerks all the way to the finals and maybe even a championship. And there's nothing through 2 games that doesn't make me think that that's happening right before our eyes with Devon Levi. He did get a little lucky. There was a power play opportunity early in the first period, or was it halfway through the first period, where it got behind him and it went off the post and to come right back out into the slot. But hey, every goalie's got to get a little bit of luck. And Levi, for the most part, has been awesome through 2 games of this series. So I think this is going to be quick work. I think they're going to get past Syracuse, and then move on to play the winner of Laval and Cleveland. And that series, by the way, if I could look very quickly here, is sitting at... Oh, maybe they haven't played yet. They have not played yet. Interesting. That's why I haven't seen what the scores have been. They haven't played yet. But the Amerks are up 2-0. That's what's important. And yeah, we'll keep rolling along and talking about these Amerks playoff games. And we'll get some guests on and some experts to talk more about what they've been doing all season, not just what I'm seeing from them in this playoff run. Hellenis, by the way, one more take on him. I meant to get to this. He scores the goal. He got into a little bit of a scrum at the end of the game. I see maturity in his game, just in the limited amount that I've seen him in Rochester, that makes me think that he could be an early arriver in Buffalo. Right now, I think Noah Oslin would still get here first. I mean, he already played some games in Buffalo. But there is just this maturity to Hellenis' game that makes me think that, he could play a rookie season in the bottom 6 in Buffalo before developing his offensive game more and then becoming a top 6 guy. I don't think about next year, maybe a call-up guy somewhere in the middle of the season. Still would surprise me at the beginning of camp, but maybe don't put it past him because he does look like he's got a mature mind for the game, in my opinion. All right, that'll do it for us today here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. More Amerks talk, and next on the show, we will talk about Tage Thompson, the second best player, in my opinion, on the Buffalo Sabres, his last season. And we'll get to Lou Lamoriello. I want to talk about Lou Lamoriello on our next show. And, he's available. He's in his 80s. He's Lou. Everyone knows Lou Lamoriello. There are positives and there are negatives to him as the general manager. And I think he's a very interesting conversation. We'll have it next time on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Didn't talk much playoffs today, but if you're looking for all that NHL playoff coverage, be sure to check out Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. We also have the squad shows, of course, in our feed. Be sure to check those out. My Carolina Cup pick continues to look good because they are, I think, having a very easy time with New Jersey, up 3-1 in that series. 5-2 yesterday. All right. That'll do it for us. I'm going to go we'll see. Am I going to go back to Twitter and fight with more people about Brandon Beane? We'll see. All right. I'll talk to you tomorrow here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.